we begin this week's episode with a correction. Last week on the show, I told you that Christopher Eccleston's, the Ninth Doctor, had been excised and replaced on screen by alternative and pre-New Who Doctor Richard E. Grant. This was an error. I was so surprised to see Grant and his Ninth Doctor that my brain, like Roussel's, refused to recognise Eccleston. I was Chris blind. Does this holographic inclusion change anything? I would argue no. The Ninth Doctor has been retrospectively bi-generated. Eccleston is no longer the only man with a claim to the title. What could he have done to be bifurcated this way?
Sack Russell T Davies, sack Jane Tranter, sack Phil Collinson, sack Julie Gardner, and I'll come back. So can you arrange that?
Beats me. But Grant's inclusion requires explanation. I'm sure you would agree with that. It changes again the chronology of the Doctor since we first met him in 1963. How do we reconcile Grant with the transition from McGann to Hurt to Eccleston? We've seen it retconned on screen already. We've seen that continuity. And why include Grant at all? And why am I asking you? Still, thank you to the many pedants who pointed out my mistake. It was a mistake, and I very humbly apologise, and I thank you for drawing attention to it. But it did get me thinking. You've made a lot of mistakes, haven't you? So, in the interest of balance, we'll now take a moment to recall and reflect on them. Cue the music. Your mistakes, here we go. Sleeping with your sister's boyfriend. Not sleeping with your sister's boyfriend. Ticking DEI boxes on job applications to get preferential treatment based on aspects of your identity that have nothing to do with your competence or work ethic. Posing as a home invading rapist to fulfill your partner's fantasy only to learn from her reaction it's something she told you because she imagined you got off on sexual violence. So now you can't tell her it was you, and you've had to pretend to be supportive as the police hunt for a man of colour you invented, because you're also a racist. Pissing in your friend's sink because they said something crass. Forcing your girlfriend to get an abortion on the pretext you're just not ready, when in fact you intend to leave her. Agreeing to house a Ukrainian refugee and her kids, but only if she agrees to become your concubine. Giving your dying friend a birthday present, which is actually an unwanted gift you passed on, complete with a Christmas card you didn't open. Grooming, heart-laughing face, sunshine, moonbeam online, despite your very strong suspicion that she's considerably younger than 21. Hiding behind your stupid girlfriend to cover passive-aggressive acts of social retardation. Actually plan to blame on her explicitly when you inevitably split up and you can pretend you were acting under duress. Going out with that bitch bastard everybody hates to lead as appropriate, Put your friends and family first. Partners a tenner penny. Charging a friend who's travelled the length of the country to see you at their own expense 20p for the use of your shower. Be needy to the point where people have to pretend to be out when you invite yourself over. Making a vexatious complaint to an ex-employer to get a colleague you didn't like fired, only to learn that the complaint brought on their epilepsy and killed them. Putting a makeshift bomb in a time capsule which you later read blinded the 8-year-old boy who found it. Being the only Liverpudlian who still buys, reads and enjoys the sun. Launching an Eat Out to Help Out scheme during a pandemic that exposes people to a killer virus, but keeps a few cafes running. Watching Doctor Who. Oh, Roussel, the season climax. We've reached the season climax. Mercy me, etc., etc. Well, it's the legend of Ruby Sunday. What is her legend? I don't know. She's a legend in your or mine, not in mine. But yes, here we are, and we're at the end. And you promised us a twist at the end, Susan Twist, and she was here at the end. And but the twist was not that she was Susan, the Doctor's granddaughter. That would have been a little bit too on the nose, even for you. It turned out that she was in fact an agent of Sutek, the evil Egyptian god of death, who was last seen in the Pyramids of Mars in 1975. Somewhere, Tom Baker bolted upright in bed and gasped. Would have meant nothing to the kids, of course, whom your show is aimed at. Would have nothing meant to the younglings. They don't know who Sutek is. They don't really know anything that happened in the world prior to about 2004. And in that respect, they're Ruby, aren't they? They have absolute historic ignorance, both of the world and popular culture, up to that point. But it's interesting you chose Sutek, because that means you've still got one eye, or with one half closed eye, on the old fans, the people who actually were watching this shit long before Disney Plus subscribers got in on the game, and who actually care about it. The people that in Radio Times interviews you pretend you don't really care about, even though you're one of those. You know, you say things like, well, the young love what I'm doing. Good for you. Building the stupid fans of the future. So, The Legend of Ruby Sunday was a contemporary adventure set in London, set primarily at Unit HQ, that silly Avengers-style building in the centre of London. I think that's how you envision, well, how, maybe not you, but maybe the Doctor Who writing staff in general, and the executive producers, and all the people, corporate people leading on you. You envision things in sort of Marvel type terms. You went there, Mel's still there, and Rose is there for some inexplicable reason from the specials. And so are some other people. There's a kid genius with a bow tie.
Dr. Z.
Thank you, Commander. This is one of the 7 continents on the planet Earth. It is known as North America.
And there's Mel. Did I mention that there's Mel? I've got a thing about Mel. It's a bit like Christopher Eccleston. Every time I see her, my brain automatically kind of blocks her out. You've got a computer. I don't know what the kid's called. I can't remember. Jimmy, probably.
Dr. Z.
The computer's maybe called Chaps or something like that.
Well, you're Captain Buck Rogers, and according to your ship's log, you left Earth in 1987.
That much I know. Tell me what I don't know.
I know those aren't the proper names. But it was all very, 1970s juvenile American sci-fi, wasn't it? Modern Unit is a bit like looking at, Buck Rogers in the 25th century or something. Galactica 1980, it's got that kind of feel to it. Is this what bringing the show up a notch looks like for you, Roussel? Taking us back to the 70s? Well, you literally done that by bringing Sutek back, and everyone at Unit is so earnest. Doctor! I don't like that. I don't like the earnestness. I don't like Kate Lethbridge-Stewart with tears welling in her eyes when generic man we've barely met dies in the time holodeck. Or what did you call it? The time window. A sort of temporal hollow chamber that's sort of half a projected image and half a window into the time period itself. All very confusing. I mean, as someone pointed out, why can't you just get in the fucking TARDIS and go back there? Oh no, because I'm locked out. It's a moment of time I'm locked out. How convenient. So it is weird though in a show like Doctor Who where you have a time machine, you can go anywhere at any time, that you need to contrive to have these workarounds. But if the Doctor could just go back and take a look at Ruby's mother, actually unmask her like he should have done back on the church on Ruby Road, and there wouldn't be a story, would there? So maybe don't build the story around those sorts of, hinge moments. Try to find incidents that might actually plausibly be difficult for the Doctor to investigate without having to add a little bit of bullshit, a little bit of technobabble. Oh, it's a fixed moment in time and I can't interfere with it, etc. Except, of course, he did interfere with it because he went back there, didn't he? He wasn't there the first time, or was he? I suppose now he's there every time. But you see what I mean? I think I see what I mean. I'm not. Anyway, time travel's confusing, isn't it? But no, I don't like this kind of. I don't like this, sort of 1970s kind of aspect to Unit. I don't really like Unit, if I'm being brutally honest with you. I've never liked Unit very much. Is it wrong to say that? I liked it better when it was, the Brigadier. Because Brigadier Lethbridge-Stewart was more of a sort of. He was less an emoter. Someone got shot down. The Brigadier was much more sort of stoic about it. Well, we've lost another one, Doctor, but that's just the way it goes.
Lord, is that a spaceship?
You scumbag!
Sorry, Doctor, but I think I'm rather more expendable than you are.
He wasn't holding back the tears. I mean, my God, if you've got that little control, that little lack of self-regulation, what are you doing being the head of Unit at all? But maybe it's because the Doctor's such a big emoter. Everybody on Doctor Who is an emoter now. The Doctor said, bring in the loving! Let's all hug it in, bring it in! He's doing all of this crap. And everybody's... What's the Doctor? Everybody's like that. Everyone's sort of... Should they be? Because there was a time when the Doctor used to turn up and people were a bit more matter-of-fact about it. Oh, Doctor, good to see you, old chap. Well, this is the situation. What can you do for us? It wasn't a loving. My God, it was like being at home with Catherine Tate.
Anyway, shush, please. For the eyebrow story.
Oh, yes. So,
That sort of emotive earnestness, if you like, is, I would call sort of, I don't know, a camp aura. Camp destroys drama, we've discussed this. Camp destroys drama. But so does its aura. When everybody acts like they're in a sort of BBC melodrama, then it's very hard to take the drama on screen seriously because you get caught by it every other moment, don't you? Every time you're actually threatened to be invested in the thing, you get Jimmy, the silly bow-tied genius kid on a scooter going, It's just overloading you, Doctor. And you're, oh, right. And then you're back in the room. Because people aren't talking and acting like real human beings. Now, I know this is Doctor Who. I do understand. I do get it. And I understand that it is a heightened universe. But if everything is heightened, then nothing feels real. You know what I mean? You can create better dramatic effects by toning down the camp. Toning down the melodrama. And that way, when you really do need a beat, when you really do need an emotional moment that really hits, you can have one. Because everything else is grounded. You know, I miss conversations in Doctor Who of the kind that there was, for example, between the Fourth Doctor and Sutekh in Pyramids of Mars, where they're having an exchange which is very important, and Sutekh's explaining his, philosophy of death and all the rest of it. But it's done in a tone which is, I don't know. Well, I suppose more sort of Claudius, more BBC studio drama of the 70s.
Your evil is my good. I am Sutekh the Destroyer. Where I tread, I leave nothing but dust and darkness. I find that good.
It's two people in a room having a conversation, and they're not projecting to an audience that isn't there. Everyone on Doctor Who is a bit like Susan Triad, standing on stage talking to an imaginary audience. They're projecting to the guy or girl in row Y who's not there. It's television, it's an intimate space. Okay? It's just the actor and the camera. Don't overdo it. And send that memo to fucking Murray Gold as well, who's also playing an imaginary fucking concert to thousands of people in Hyde Park. Just tone it down a bit. And we might have half a chance of taking this shit seriously. So I don't like Unit, and I don't like the robot. I don't like Chaps the robot and Jimmy the child genius. I don't want to see him anymore. Please don't tell me that they're going to be a regular feature of the show from now on. Any chance that Sutekh might kill them all in next week's episode? That would be a bonus. And then there was the other issue around this episode, which was that it was set in contemporary London, 2024 London. And I just thought to myself, But you've left a doctor there. I'm sure many people were screaming at their TVs, where's David Tennant? Where's the 14th Doctor? If I'd left a doctor on Earth, not a human copy or whatever, but the real thing, because I'd invented a silly device to keep David Tennant alive and happy at Catherine Tate's house, although, as we've seen, I doubt very much he still is happy. He's probably bored off his tits by now. But if I had done that, I'd invented the stupid concept of bi-generation, and I'd left David Tennant in situ in Catherine Tate's house with Catherine Tate's stupid family. I'd be quite keen not to have climactic end of season blowouts that occurred in the same time in the same location. Remember, you can go anywhere, Roussel, on Doctor Who. Do you remember that? It doesn't have to be on Earth, and it doesn't have to be in London or Wales. You can go anywhere. So why not set it in, I don't know, fucking 1890s London or something? Because the problem is, if you set your final episode in 2024, and I know you're kind of trapped because it's all about Ruby, it's all about her past. It's another error. Don't ever make it about the companion, the girl who is the absolute key to everything. We don't need to see that again. We've seen that 4 billion times. It's become a terrible cliche, the albatross around the neck of every sci-fi fan. If you're going to do that, well, it's going to beg the question, where's 14? You know, news of this Sutek re-emergence is going to get to him, surely. I mean, by now, you know, he's atrophying in Catherine Tate's house, you know, lying in a pool of his own urine, watching Tipping Point. And he's actually looking forward to Richard Osman's House of Games later on. He's got his Radio Times out, he's circled. Got Live and Let Die's on a bit later. It's a good one. I like Live and Let Die.
There seems to be some mistake. My name is James is for tombstones, baby. You all take this honky out and waste him now.
It's a blaxploitation one. It's one of my favourites. Doctor's bored and, you know, was never meant to have a life at home, doing nothing, vegetating. My God, if he becomes really bored, maybe he'll become a YouTuber or something. We'll start doing this shit. How do you think I started? Can you watch The Chase for so long? So, where is he? Is he going to turn up in the next episode? He can't, of course, can he? Because if he does, that would set the expectation that he's always going to show up. So he's just not going to show up. Which is silly, isn't it? Because the 14th Doctor would want to get involved. He's not going to sit there and go, well, I guess the guy who followed me is on the case. Sutek, you know, the harbinger of death, the evil god who I've dealt with before. I know how dangerous he is, but yeah. When you were young and your heart was an open book, used to say, live and let live. Where is he? You're not going to see him. So, think about that, won't you? As you should have done before. What else is there to talk about in The Legend of Ruby Sunday? Well, the legend itself is just Ruby's mysterious origin. You know, her being dumped at a church by a weird hooded figure on Christmas Eve in 2004. Who's it going to be? As this whole thing was a setup to facilitate Sutek's return, Sutek presumably helped contrive the whole thing? Or has Sutek just latched on to this sequence of events opportunistically? How does it tie to Ruby? What the fuck's Ruby got to do with anything? I suppose we'll find out next week, won't we? Why is Sutek's plan so over elaborate? I mean, Sutek has attached himself to the TARDIS at some stage or other. Well, he could only reveal himself in 2024, and only at the point that the other plot threads of the season were bunched. He planted images of Susan Twist in other episodes, or put a face in other situations to create a mystery for the Doctor to solve that brought the Doctor back to 2024 unit, so he could investigate, thereby bringing about the events that would release Sutek. But if Sutek can do that, and therefore has power and agency in other time periods and places, why doesn't Sutek just appear when, you know, I know he's the one who waits, but what's he waiting for? Why the running? Why not just show up? Didn't make sense to me, but can you explain it? I'm sure the pedants can explain it, can't you? It's always got an answer. So, that's it. Legend of Ruby Sunday. Next week, Empire of Death, the conclusion. Let's see what happens. Maybe Mel could die. That would be great. Would you dare to kill Mel? You won't, will you? Why is Rose investigating shoplifting in Catford? Units remit extend to petty crime in southeast London? Why drag Catford's name through the mud? What have we got against Catford? Got a shopping centre there, haven't they? That's all right. There was Anita Dobson, of course, who causes radio interference. We've known since episode 1 that she's in on the whole thing. She can break the fourth wall. Here she was again, left with Ruby's grandmother, Yolandi from EastEnders, looking sinister and ushering in the he cometh. She didn't say that, but she may as well have done. That's the register for this episode. Everyone was doing this. He cometh! What's that all about? I suppose now we can junk our theories about Angie Watts being the Rani or whatever. Apparently just a Sutek minion, but again, why has she been placed to watch over Ruby her whole life? What's all that about? Let's find out. Let's hope to God you know, Roussel. The one thing I didn't like before we go, I'm sorry, I know it felt like I was wrapping up there, and I thought I was, but actually I'd forgotten to say something. Doctor. That was my Ncuti Gatwa impression, looking stunned at the arrival of Sutekh. Tom Baker didn't feel the need to over-emote like that, did he? Anyway, yeah, what was I going to say? Oh, yes. When the Doctor was talking about his past, he was talking about his stint as the man we still call the First Doctor, even though we now know he was nothing of the kind. And Ncuti said something like, I was an enigma back then. I'm still trying to shake it off. Why? Do you know the name of the show is Doctor Who? You're supposed to be a fucking enigma. You stupid soft sod. Why did you put that line in, Russell? That's a mission statement, isn't it? That's you telling us you plan to make the Doctor much more of a open person. More human. More like the guy that you might meet out in Camden Town one afternoon. But that's not who the Doctor is. As we discussed last week, the Doctor is supposed to be a man of higher learning, a higher being, a greater intelligence, culturally superior to us mere humans. Not one of the crowd, not one of the lads, not the guy that you meet in a club in Islington on a Saturday night, but somebody very different. The more human you make the Doctor, the more common you make the Doctor, the less of an enigma he becomes, and therefore he becomes less of a character that we have interest in. If you're going to just junk that absolutely crucial element of Doctor Who, then just kill the Doctor off and replace him with some bloke. Doesn't matter who the fuck it is, does it? Alright, I'm Barry, and I'm going to go for an adventure in space and time. Not much of an enigma, me, really. I'm just a geezer. Come on then, Rubes. Let's do some fucking time travel. No! So, that is the end of this review of The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Next week, The Empire of Death, which is what they used to call the cinema in Leicester Square, but we won't get into that. Until next time, I don't know, nanu, whatever. Bye!